What are some non-obvious, early signs that a relationship is coming to an end? My denial is so big. I don't even want to read the comments here. Just hanging out becomes a chore more than pleasure. When others talk about your so to you, and you get a little exasperated, or a little wince grown on your face when they say their name. When you start feeling nostalgia for the relationship you're currently in. Reading this thread has confirmed many times over that my almost 8-year relationship is definitely over. Reckon it has been for many years now. When you are companion. Someone to keep them from feeling alone while they go about their life. Even fights are one-sided. The other person just stops trying to resolve the issues. When your so seems totally disinterested in talking to you. You try to start a conversation and they just give you one-word, one-sentence answers. When you don't see each other for a few days. And you're not excited to get back together. When their quirks that you used to find endearing now make you want to commit violence. When you're spending time with them and you'd rather be anywhere else. When conversations with them become dry and boring. That's a big one too. When he/she no longer bothers to get upset or angry with you. It shows they have checked out and think of you as a stranger. When it starts to feel like a bottomless pit. No matter how much effort you put into it. Things don't improve and you get less and less back every day. Alternatively. When you realize that you can't problem solve for sh*t when the two of you are together. Even simple tasks that require nothing more than open communication. Relationships require work. But they also need to be functional. If basic incompatibility keeps the two of you from working together as a partnership. It's f***ing doomed. You don't want to see them anymore. I thought I was just tired from starting a new job and anxious about upcoming changes in my life. Nah. Turns out I just didn't want to see him anymore. It felt like going to work. I spend 9 hours a day bugging guys about making phone calls and filling out paperwork, and then I realized I'd just go straight to his house and bug him about doing homework and calling the vet for his dog. When you feel like you have to make excuses about your so to others. Why they do what they do. Why they said what they said, etc. When you take a trip together. And argue the whole time. One of the reasons I knew I needed to marry my wife. We could go anywhere together. I asked a friend of my boyfriend's if he and his GF wanted to go on a trip with us. You feel strongly about something but you don't want to talk about it because you know it'll just become an argument that won't be resolved satisfactorily. Looking forward to him being away at work, etc. Or me not looking forward to coming home. That's only an example if you live together, of course. Edit. I didn't think I needed to clarify. But obviously I'm not talking about wanting alone time or a little space from one another every now and then. That's normal and healthy. I'm talking excessive amounts of alone time. When you enjoy being away from them more than you enjoy their presence. The brief, terrifying, numbing thought of is this going to be the rest of my life? Edit. Thanks for the gold. My very first ever. On such a depressing memory-laden post. Thanks. Edit. Silver 2. Knowing that your so is physically in the room with you. But feeling that mentally. They are very far away from you. If marriage. Here was mine. She didn't want to put her name on the house we were about to buy. She still gave me money to help me get it. But she wouldn't put her name on the mortgage. I forget the reason. But it went in one ear and out the other. It should have been a red flag. But I was naive. We were divorced 1 year later. She didn't want that house with me because she was already thinking about leaving me. A friend asked me, "What's he like?" About a month into the relationship. I couldn't answer. It ended in flames. Lesson learned. When you get the urge to ask people about symptoms of a failing relationship. By this point it's already too late. In my last relationship. Neither of us had a car to drive and we lived 50+ minutes away from each other. We had things budgeted out so one of us could take an Uber to my house, her house and back for the weekend. When I occasionally questioned the inconvenient cost of the Uber, she would say it doesn't matter. It's worth spending that money just to see you. After a month or so, plus a couple fights, tough conversations about things, she changed her mind about taking an Uber up to see me, saying it's not worth the money. I need to save. I knew a little beforehand the relationship was rocky, but after hearing that, there was no way of being able to save it. She's a very nice person, though. We just have different points of views on things. I still think about her all the time and hope she's doing well. Being with them feels like an obligation. Their quirks drive you away from them subconsciously. You're only trying for the sake of keeping up a social veil of perfection. Or when you're asking this question on Reddit. Contempt. Relationships don't survive contempt. Early, small expressions of disgust grow larger and more entrenched as people build on what they have become accustomed to getting away with. Eye-rolling when the partner talks. Cutting them off in conversation. Dismissing with sarcastic generalizations. Oh. As if you'd ever. Semicolon. Belittling the partner when in the safety of groups. All these things are signs that the iceberg is dead ahead. Only having sexual attraction when you're drunk. The opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. When this makes sense to you, it's over. Take all of these with a handful of salt. Every relationship and person is different, and it applies to how they express love, affection, or how their relationship works. If you're making connections between this thread and your relationship that you weren't aware of already. Cute messages that feel obligatory. When you come home from work and instead of getting out the car right away you want to stay in your car longer. When they stop appreciating and start showing contempt. When they become non-committal on plans, especially those that involve reservations. When the conversation seems less full than it used to be, as if you are just going through the motions of asking how each other's day was. When deep, personal conversations either remain more superficial than before or stay mired in prolonged and unresolved conflict. When they ask if you ever think about dating other people, not non-obvious. But how on earth I missed that one is beyond me. When their 5-year plan changes vastly, seemingly out of the blue. When instead of getting excited to see their messages you get annoyed and or feel smothered. When I was questioning whether or not I wanted to break up with my ex, this is what really told me it was time to go. When the communication slows to a trickle. When you look up one day and realize you all haven't had a conversation beyond what to have for dinner or what movie to watch. It's much more obvious when communication dies altogether. But when it slows to a trickle, and you notice it's going, that's when you should pay extra attention. But when you put in your best efforts to get the conversation flowing again, and they don't reciprocate, that's when the relationship is in real trouble. They post on our relationships. Checks current subreddit. Short replies and longish reply times. Capital K. When little things they do that might have been cute or attractive before start to irritate you. For example, boyfriend is so smart and intellectual we have the most interesting conversations. Sometime later, boyfriend is so smart but every time we have a conversation he argues with me even though I am a subject matter expert at this and have personal experience. If you keep asking them to hang out or make plans for something but they ignore you. They stop responding to your texts. Start calling you crazy because you got mad for their lack of communication. Knowingly lie to you and or conveniently hide things from you. Won't make time for you but expects you to be available for them anytime. When breakup songs start making more sense to you than love songs. I just got dumped last week. This thread hurts. Stay strong, friend. When he came home from work after I had slept over, this is probably a month and a half into the relationship. I skipped out of his room to see him with a big smile on my face. And he excitedly greeted the dog while my smile faded slowly as I realized he wasn't even going to look at me after he was done. We were not in a fight at the time or anything. I should have known at that point. Even as an adult. I have the excuse that it was my first relationship. Edit. Wording. Another edit. Clarification that the hurt came from that he didn't acknowledge me at all and it wasn't jealousy over the dog mayo. Just creating the scene in your mind with my words. When you start to feel resentment toward that person, or little things they do start to annoy you, that's usually been a sign that things are starting to go downhill. This also happens in good relationships and can be a sign you need to talk through some things. Even though they're physically together in the same room, one feels as though the other is not there, that their thoughts and affections are elsewhere. If something happens that you want to discuss with someone, get advice, share good news, sympathy for something, etc., and your so is not the first person you want to go to, then the relationship is on its way out. Not necessarily if it happens once or twice. But if it happens frequently, then they are not the person for you. When you Google the signs of a failing relationship, people have an awareness of the state of the relationship even if they are not conscious of it. I found myself Googling if I should break up with my ex before I clocked I was thoroughly unhappy in my relationship. When one keeps finding a reason to leave the house, run non-imperative errands, etc., without the other, pretty much means they don't want to be home and or in your company. Often, but not always. For romantic relationships is a difference in sexual preferences. For example, your partner wants sex less often than you and seems to avoid having sex, makes excuses, whether they are valid or not. Along the same vein, avoidance in general. They always seem to have something that's keeping them busy. Or they have previous obligations. They won't answer their phone very quickly. Or at all. When my GF moved her boyfriend in, I kinda got the hint. When you return to Rome after a successful campaign against the Cimbri and Teutones, bringing much fame and glory to Rome, and he joins the Optimates in opposition to you. Edit. Adding some more. Commands the cavalry wing at the Battle of Vercelli, and takes all the credit. When he captures the Numidian king Jugurtha in a daring feat, winning himself much prestige and fame. He's not your man. He's Lucius Cornelius Sulla. I used to date this guy who was struggling mentally, financially, and was just pretty lonely. We got close and fell in love. And over the course of a few years he wouldn't do anything to change his situation. So I helped. We got him out of debt, new clothes, encouraged and went with him to the gym, motivated him to work on his side project every day and so on. After he got his shit together, he felt happier and got more confidence. He then dumped me. I always wonder why he ended things after I made so much effort to help him better himself. Did he get more confidence? Did he suddenly think he was too good for me? IDK. When she can't get hard for you anymore. Less physical contact. When they fail to make time for you and offer no explanation. You don't get that midday call anymore where they check in to see how you're doing and to say I love you. Is that a thing? When your partner is often suspicious, accusing of you. If they start bettering themselves, going to the gym, taking classes, dressing more sharply. In a healthy relationship this is a wonderful thing obviously. But if things have been pretty grim for a while, this can be a pretty bad sign. When you can't see the next major holiday with them. I couldn't see Valentine's Day with my ex and Voila. This is from a study I heard about. So could be obvious if you know it. But I don't think most PPL think about it. Attention bids and turning away versus turning towards. A partner asks for input or attention from their partner however many times a day. And if their partner isn't responding affirmatively to turning towards those asks, I believe 8 out of 10 times, then the relationship is struggling. I try to keep the general concept in mind when with a partner. Attention bids can be as small as, "Did you hear this news story?" or "Look at this funny cat picture," etc. Consciously paying attention to those attempts at connection and responding positively will improve a relationship. But ignoring them or responding negatively will weaken and eventually end the relationship. Friends generally pick up on it before the people in the relationship. And your pals can't say anything nice or shut up when your girlfriend boyfriend walks in. Or they are having pointed conversations questioning your judgment for dating this person. Then that's a bad sign. One friend. That might just be a fluke. Multiple friends. And you're in a bad relationship. When you sit down. If your directional facing angle is exactly 109.47 degrees different than your so, and you did that subconsciously, you have a 92% of breaking up with them in the next 90 days. It's not super obvious for most people. But I usually whip out my protractor in coffee shops and start laying down some mad truths. This. So much. People also tend to neglect simple biological signs. Like if you come home from work, you greet her, and she doesn't instantaneously get on all fours and starts making you a sandwich seasoned with dead skin cells from her antecubital fossa. Like, what? When you feel like it's more effort than the return, you should be happy and your relationship shouldn't feel like a job or obligation. There are instances of people staying together where both are just sort of indifferent and clearly not a madly in love couple. But they can make it work because they each do just enough to remain content and not make each other miserable. This isn't ideal for most people. But it can work. Once you cross that line and feel like the relationship is just draining you of energy, your freedoms, your happiness, etc. That's a good sign to just end it. Silence and lots of it. When you start texting, calling each other less, it usually means you're so found someone new and exciting to talk to. Most of my exes just ghosted me instead of formally breaking up with me. So that is my experience with it. People get bored. I don't know how people find someone to marry or stay in relationships for 2+ years. My relationships are usually passionate for a year and then fade away. I'm getting a little sad typing this. But meh. I guess this applies to people in their early 20s mostly? Maybe people who are older, wiser, have longer lasting relationships? I really don't know how you all do it. Maybe if I had more money it will last longer? This comment went from 0-100 real quick. FCK. You realize you are still together because it's what you're comfortable with and used to. Not out of your own desire to actually be with the person. I think that threads like these are very dangerous because they encourage people to make judgments without solid evidence. Contempt. You're not having fun anymore. If he loves you, you'll know. If he doesn't, you'll be confused. When she poisons your Velveeta. If you bust a nut and don't like her anymore, it's over. Lack of communication and not making time for each other. My wife left me and I say a sign is no more sex, or when she hang up the phone when you come in the room. A lack of empathy. This and selfishness are two huge signs I look out for after my most recent relationship. I have no problem getting you a drink, making you food, taking care of you if you're under the weather, or helping you in any other way. I ran her to several doctor's appointments, did midnight food runs when I was exhausted, drew her baths, and brought her everything she needed regardless of cost. I was thanked maybe twice in 6 months. And one I had to drag out of her. She asked me to do a favor for her after I got home from work one night and justified me doing it as she had been home all day and wasn't in the mood. Question mark? Comma as a test. I asked her to do the same thing when I had been home all day and she had been working. She screamed, "Are you f***ing serious? I just got home from work." It was the first small sign of her much larger underlying issues. When one of you is constantly having a bad time for a long period of time. This just sounds like clinical depression. When being in the presence of your significant other begins to feel like a mandatory chore rather than an enjoyable time. Game over. GG no re. When everything they say irritates you. A lot of people, especially young people, don't understand emotional abuse. Read about it and see if it sounds like what you're experiencing. They start comparing you with past failed relationships. Yeah. A lot of these signs are not done deals that the relationship is over or that it needs to be over. People today seem to be clueless when it comes to being a team with your soul and working through things together. If these answers have made you uncomfortable or self-conscious about your own relationship, don't let them. Relationships of any kind require work. Especially romantic ones. Life isn't a Disney movie. Things don't fall magically into place. There is no one waiting for you. Miscommunication and people doing dumb things happen because we're human. Quit quitting on people over -t. Spending less time with you. A lot of fighting. They want to be more right than to actually make the relationship work. If it was serious, they stop saying the L word. Lincoln Logs. When you start checking their Facebook account to see what they're up to. If you're in a very SL relationship, if you start to feel not attracted to the other person anymore for no reason,